Some guys spend their whole lives looking for something they can't even put a name to. Leland Moss quit looking the day he put his family in the ground. He'd talked himself into thinking being alone was better than wishing for stuff. That rooms with nothing in them hurt less than promises that turn out empty. Then 3 ladies showed up at the end of his land, all bloody and with no shoes. And everything he thought he knew about being scared melted away right then. Because the lady in front with eyes like big storm clouds and a knife held real steady even though her hands shook a bit, looked at him like he was already bad for stuff he'd never do. And somehow in that second of both being super scared and really needing help, neither knew that what they were most afraid of in each other would turn into the only thing that kept them alive. Leland had been chopping wood out back by the little barn when he spotted them. 3 shapes moving real slow through the tall grass by the stream, holding each other up in a way that showed they were hurt and super tired. He put down the axe real careful, his hand going on its own toward the gun leaning on the barn wall before he made himself stop. Something about how they walked, all jerky and hurting, let him know they weren't dangerous. At least not like he first figured. They saw him right when he walked into the open spot. The tallest one, the lady in front, shoved the other 2 behind her with a protecting arm, even with the blood on her shoulder. Her face was super strong in how tough it looked. All pointy corners and rough sides with long dark hair around it, part of it tied with a leather string. She held a knife, small but could kill, pointed right at his chest. He raised his hand slow, palms out. No guns, no quick moves. They stared at each other over 30 feet of dry grass and not trusting. Leland could see now that all 3 were injured. The one in the middle had ripped cloth tied around her thigh, all wet with red. The youngest leaned hard against her sister, using her left side less. But it was the leader's eyes that kept him stuck. Not with being scared exactly, with something trickier. Knowing each other went between them without talking. She saw a guy alone on faraway land. He saw women running from something worse than him. He lowered his hands a bit, pointing toward the house. She shook her head once, quick and for sure. The knife didn't shake, he got it. Trust wasn't something she handed out easy, if ever. And he was just the type of guy she'd learned not to trust. Leland took one slow step back toward the well. Her eyes followed it like a hunter. He reached for the bucket, moving on purpose, showing her each move before he did it. Pulled up water, put the bucket on the ground between them, stepped back again. The youngest sister said something in a language he didn't get. Urgent begging. The leader's jaw got tight, but she didn't budge. Seconds dragged into little forever times. Then the middle sister tripped, her leg quitting, and the choice got made because they had to, not because of trust. The leader spoke for the first time, her voice scratchy and quiet. You come closer, you bleed. Leland nodded once. He'd heard worse warnings said with less realness. He pointed again toward the house, then walked slow that way, giving them room to follow or run off. He didn't look back. Didn't have to. He could feel 3 pairs of eyes on his back, checking every step for tricks. When he got to the door, he opened it wide and went in, right away moving to the far side of the room, making room, showing them he got the rules. They could come in or not. The choice was theirs. Long moments went by. Then shadows came across the doorway. The leader came in first, knife still out. Eyes checking the single room with pro skill, finding ways out, spotting weapons, figuring chances. Her look finally landed on him. And for the first time, Leland saw past the tough way she stood to the tiredness under it. She was going on nothing but grit and anger, keeping her sisters safe with the last bits of power she had. He'd seen that look before in the mirror after the sickness took everyone he loved. She must have seen something change in his face because her hold on the knife switched, not putting it down, but not quite as ready to stab. The thinking in her eyes got more mixed, more risky in a different way. The middle sister fell into the chair by the table, her hurt legs stretched out in front. The youngest helped her, then looked at Leland with less mad and more needy hope. But it was the leader who kept his focus, who he couldn't quite stop looking at. even knowing staring at a lady with a knife was usually a bad idea. She spoke again, this time to her sisters, fast words he couldn't catch. Then back to him, each word picked careful. Watercloth for wounds. Then we leave. He nodded slow. Started to go toward the shelf where he kept stuff. She followed him with the blade, her body turning to stay between him and her sisters, even as she wobbled a little on her feet. That's when he saw the blood dripping from her arm. Steady drops hitting the wood floor. "You're hurt worse than them," he said quietly. Her eyes sparked. "I'm fine." She wasn't, and they both knew it. But Leland had learned that some true things had to be found out instead of said. So he got clean cloth, a bowl, the special bottle of alcohol he'd been saving, put them on the table close enough, but not too near. Stepped back again. The youngest sister moved first, starting to clean the wound on the middle sister's thigh. The leader stayed standing, watching him with that same creepy, strong look. He couldn't read her face. Didn't know if it was hate or fear or some wild mix of both. What he did know was that something had changed in the room when their eyes met. Something neither had words for yet. Something that made the air feel heavier, full of maybe, and danger the same amount. He cleared his throat. "There's a room in back, beds clean, door locks from inside." Suspicion made lines on her forehead. "Why?" "So you can sleep without that knife in your hand." Her laugh was mean and short. "I sleep with this knife every night. Then at least you can rest without thinking I'll try the door." She studied him for a long moment, weighing true against what she'd been through. Whatever she saw made her shoulders drop half an inch, the first break in her shield. "What's your name?" "Leland Moss. This is my land." "Your land?" she repeated, something dark going across her face. Then after a pause that felt like a test. "Nalin." Just the one name, no background, no explaining, but it hit between them like a promise or a threat. He wasn't sure which. The middle sister spoke from the chair, her voice tight with pain. Nalin answered sharp, then softer. "Some fight about staying or going." He guessed about if the risk of him was bigger than the risk of whoever they were running from. Finally, Nalin looked back at him. "We stay tonight." "Tomorrow we're gone." He nodded, didn't fight it. Tomorrow was forever away when people were bleeding in your kitchen. But as he went to heat water for cleaning wounds, as Nalin finally put the knife down enough to let her youngest sister fix her arm, Leland felt something he hadn't felt in months. Not quite hope, not yet, but maybe the memory of what hope used to feel like. What he didn't know, what none of them could have guessed, was that the men chasing these women were already closer than the skyline, and the choice to stay, even for one night, had started a timer none of them could stop. Outside in the dying light, dust kicked up far away, riders coming with a plan toward the only house for miles. Nalin didn't sleep that first night. Not really. She sat with her back against the locked door of the small room, knife across her lap, listening to every squeak of wood and change of wind. The youngest, Sani, had fallen asleep almost right away, her body giving up to tiredness even if her mind said no. Ka, the middle sister, went in and out of sleep, her hurt leg hurting with each heartbeat. But Nalin stayed alert because the last time she trusted a stranger's kindness, her cousin had paid for that mess-up with her life. Through the thin walls, she could hear him moving in the main room. Leland, the name felt weird in her head, too normal for someone who'd been nice without wanting stuff back. In her life, guys always wanted something, always took more than they gave. Yet he'd stepped back when she told him to, had given them room and stuff without hanging around or wanting thanks. Had looked at her with something that wasn't greed or looking down, but she couldn't figure what it was. That unknown thing bugged her more than straight mad would have. She pressed her palm against the door, feeling the hard wood. On the other side, his footsteps stopped. Was he standing there too? Split by inches of wood and tons of not trusting. The thought made her heart beat faster in a way that had nothing to do with fear. Morning came pale and slow through the one window. Nalin finally let herself shut her eyes for a few minutes, trusting daylight to keep them safe where night couldn't. When she opened them again, Sun had got stronger, and the smell of cooking meat came under the door. Sani stirred first, her young face wrinkling with quick confusion before memory came back. She looked at Nalin with questions in her eyes, but stayed quiet. They'd learned long ago to talk without words when needed. Ka woke slower, making a face as she tried to move her leg. The wound had stopped bleeding in the night, but getting sick from it was still a risk. They needed to clean it right. Needed stuff they didn't have. Nalin unlocked the door careful, listening before opening it. The main room was empty, but fresh bread sat on the table next to strips of cooked deer meat. A bowl of clean water steamed soft beside them. She checked for signs of poison or trap, old habits not shutting up. Through the window, she saw him working near the small pen where 2 horses ate grass. He'd taken off his shirt in the getting hot day, and she found herself watching the way muscles moved under sun-browned skin as he fixed a part of fence. Scars were on his back. Light lines that told of tough work and tougher lessons. He hadn't heard them come out. For a second, she let herself just watch him without him knowing, to see him as something besides a maybe danger. The thought that she found him good-looking came with a sharp feel of guilt and mad at herself. Ka's hand on her shoulder pulled her back. Her sister raised an eyebrow, a knowing look that Nalin ignored on purpose. But heat had gone to her cheeks, and Ka's small smile said she'd seen. They ate quiet, the food too yummy to waste on worry. Nalin had just done the last bit of bread when Leland showed up in the doorway, shirt back on, but not buttoned, hair wet like he'd washed at the stream. Their eyes met and held for a breath longer than needed. Something went between them, not said but real as touch. His look went to her wrapped arm, and worry made lines on his forehead. "Needs changing," he said quietly, going toward the shelf. "I can do it myself." "I know you can." He got fresh cloth anyway, put it on the table in her reach. "Doesn't mean you should have to." The simple words surprised her. Most guys would have pushed, would have used her hurt as a reason to touch her. Instead, he gave her the choice and stepped back, waiting. Nalin found herself taking off the bloody cloth, showing the deep cut that went from elbow to wrist. Ka moved to help, but Nalin shook her head. Something stubborn and testing came up in her. She looked right at Leland. "You do it." Surprise went across his face. Then, getting that this was a test. Maybe a trap. For sure a challenge, he came close slow, sitting in the chair across from her. When his fingers touched her skin for the first time, careful and soft as he cleaned the wound, Nalin felt a spark run up her arm. Not hurt, something way more risky. His hands were rough from work, but steady, sure without being pushy. He worked quiet, focused all on the job, and she found herself looking at his face up close. The strong line of his jaw, the small scar above his left eyebrow, the way his breath stopped a bit when their eyes met by accident. "You're good at this," she said, surprising herself. "Had practice, lost people because I wasn't fast enough learning." The sad in his voice was old but not fixed. She knew it. Carried her own kind of the same heavy. "The fever?" she asked, remembering his earlier words. His hand stopped for just a second. "Took my mother first, then my father 3 days later. Little sister held on for a week, but he stopped. Jaw getting tight. Kept wrapping her arm with careful care. Wasn't meant to survive alone. But you did. So did you." The words stayed between them. Saying yes to same kind of hurts. Nalin felt something move in her chest. Some locked door starting to open even if she didn't want. Before she could answer, Sani gasped sharp, staring out the window. They all turned to see what took her voice. 3 riders came over the hill to the east. Even far away, Nalin knew the lead horse, knew the mean way of the man's shoulders. They'd been found, and this time there was nowhere left to run. Leland moved before his mind got the danger all the way. He went to the shelf in 3 steps, pulled out the gun he kept ready for exactly this kind of mess. When he turned back, Nalin was already up, knife in hand, putting herself between the window and her sisters. "Who are they?" he asked, checking the gun's parts. "Traders, the kind who take what they want and call it business." Her voice went flat, no feeling like when talking about bad dreams. We were working at their camp, cooking, fixing. They paid okay at first. She didn't finish, but she didn't need to. Leland had heard enough tales about guys who thought pay meant they could take more than work. How many were there? He went to the window, staying to the side where he couldn't be seen easy. 5 at first. We left 2 getting away. Ka spoke this time, her voice tight with hurt and something tougher. Pride maybe or mad. Left one with a broken arm, and the other won't be walking straight for a while. 3 riders meant they'd left the hurt behind. Meant they wanted the sisters bad enough to chase with less guys. That kind of wanting made men risky and dumb the same. Leland watched them come, reading their sit and speed. They weren't rushing. Sure of themselves then. Probably didn't expect fight from a lone farmer and 3 hurt women. There's a root cellar, he said, keeping eyes on the rider's entrance behind the woodpile. You can hide there while I number. Nalen's voice cut through the air like her blade. We don't hide anymore. He looked at her, then really looked and saw something that made his chest tight. She wasn't just scared or mad. She was done running. Done letting men say her choices through hurt and threats. Then we make a stand, he said simple. But we do it smart. The riders were close enough now to see stuff. The leader wore a big hat and had the thick body of someone who used hitting as his main talk. The other 2 were younger, looking hungrier. All 3 had guns across their saddles. Leland's mind did math. 3 against 4, except Ka couldn't fight with that leg. Sanny was too young, too small. That left him and Nalan against 3 armed guys who'd already shown they had no good rules. The odds were bad, but he'd faced bad odds before. Sani. Nalan spoke fast in her own words, pointing toward the back room. The girl started to say no, but something in Nalan's face stopped her. She helped Ka toward the back, both moving as quiet as they could. Then it was just Leland and Nalan standing side by side, watching death ride slow toward them. You could leave through the back, Leland offered, even though he knew she wouldn't. Take your sisters and run. I'll hold them here and let you die for us. She looked at him with those storm cloud eyes, and something real showed through her shield. You think I want that weight? Better than what they'll do if they catch you. Her jaw got tight. They won't catch me. Not again. The way she said again made his stomach drop. Getting it hit him like cold water. These guys hadn't just hired the sisters. They'd already hurt them. Already took something that couldn't be given back. Mad, clean, and bright burned in his chest. But he pushed it down, made himself think smart. Mad made guys messy, and messy got you dead. The riders stopped 30 feet from the house. The leader got off slow, on purpose, showing off his sureness. Moss, he called out, voice going easy across the space. We've got no fight with you. Just send out the 3 SQ and we'll leave you be. Leland stepped into the doorway, gun held loose, but ready. They're not going anywhere. The trader's face got hard. That your choice, then? 3 Apache women you don't even know worth more than your life. Every person's worth more than your kind of business. The man spat into the dirt. Noble words from a dead man. Last chance, Moss. We're taking them one way or another. How much blood gets spilled is up to you. Leland felt Nalan move closer behind him, felt the heat of her body against his back. She was scared. He could tell, but she wasn't backing down. That bravery, wild and unbreakable, made something move in his chest. Then it's going to be a long day, Leland said quietly. For all of us. The trader's hand moved toward his gun. Time seemed to slow, each second dragging into something thick and had to happen. Leland raised his own weapon, finger finding the trigger. But before anyone could shoot, a sound broke the air. Not a gunshot, something else. Something that made all 3 traders turn their heads quick toward the ridge. More riders showed on the skyline. Not 2 or 3, at least a dozen, maybe more. Even at this space, Leland could see they rode different from the traders. Straighter, more in control, and they were coming fast. The lead trader's face went white. He jumped back on his horse, yelling orders at his buddies. Within seconds, all 3 were riding hard the other way, giving up their chase to stay alive. Leland watched them go into a cloud of dust. His heart still thumping, he lowered the gun slow, trying to get what just happened. Behind him, Nalan's breath came sharp and fast. He turned to find her staring at the coming riders, her face hard to read. Not happy. Something trickier. "Who are they?" he asked. She was quiet for a long second, then so soft he almost didn't hear. "My people." The riders stopped at the edge of Leland's land, a polite distance that showed rules, not danger. A man got off first, older than the others. His hair mixed with silver and face showed years of sun and hard times. He spoke in the same words Nalin used with her sisters, his tone with power, but not mad. Nalin answered, her voice stronger than Leland had heard it before, fancy, almost like a ceremony. She pointed toward him, and suddenly a dozen pairs of eyes turned his way, checking and judging. The older man looked at Leland for a long second, then said something that made Nalin get stiff. She answered sharp, her hand moving in fast signs. A fight started in words Leland couldn't get, but the tight feel in it was everywhere. Finally, the man nodded once and got back on. The riders turned together, starting to go back but not leaving. They set up camp just past the stream, close enough to watch, but far enough for alone time. The message was clear. They would wait, but not forever. Nalin stood still long after they'd set up, staring at the far fires starting to show. As evening came, Leland gave her room, keeping busy locking the house and checking on Ka and Sanny. The younger sisters came out careful, happy, and worried, fighting on their faces. When full dark finally came, Leland found Nalin sitting outside, back against the house side, looking up at stars that seemed too bright for such a heavy night. He sat down beside her, leaving a careful foot of space between them. Neither talked for a while, just being in the quiet broken by cricket sounds and far quiet talk from the camp. "They want us to come back," Nalin said. Eventually said, "We've been gone too long, that it's not safe out here." "They're right about the last part." She turned her head to look at him, and even in the dim light from the window behind them, he could see the fight in her face. "They want me to lead them. My father was their chief before he died. The council says it's time I took his place." Getting it settled in Leland's chest, heavy as rock. "That's why you were out here. Why you were working for those traitors instead of with your people." "I couldn't do it. Couldn't stand in my father's shadow and pretend I was strong enough to fill it." Her voice broke a bit, so I ran. Took my sisters with me, talked them into thinking we could make our own way. And look where that got us. You're alive. That counts for something. Barely, and only because you... She stopped, jaw moving as she fought for control. "Only because a stranger showed us more kindness than our own people when we needed to leave." Leland wanted to tell her she was being too hard on herself, that staying alive was never easy or nice. But he knew those words would sound empty, said by someone who'd never had to carry the heavy of leading or family history or wants measured in families over time. Instead he said, "What do you want?" The question seemed to shock her. "What I want doesn't matter. It's the only thing that matters." She laughed, mean and short. "That's not how our world works. I have jobs, my sisters, my people, my father's stuff left." A stop, then quieter. "All the things I'm supposed to want more than anything else. But you don't." It wasn't a question. She didn't answer right away. But when she did, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I want to choose something for myself, just once. Want to wake up and not feel the heavy of everyone's wants before I even open my eyes." She turned to face him fully, and there was something real and needy in her look. "Is that selfish to want something that's just mine?" No, he meant it. "It's human." Their eyes held, and Leland felt that pull again, stronger now. The space between them felt both too big and not nearly big enough. He could smell sage and smoke in her hair, see the pulse beating at the base of her throat. "Thank you," she said softly. "For today, for giving us shelter when you didn't have to, for standing with us against those men. I'd do it again." "I know." Something changed in her face. Weak spot breaking through the shield she wore like extra skin. "That's what scares me. Why? Because I'm starting to trust you." She said it like telling a secret, like saying a bad thing. "And the last time I trusted a guy who wasn't family, he..." Her voice broke. She looked away quick, but not before Leland saw tears catching starlight. He didn't touch her, though everything in him wanted to. Instead, he waited, giving her the choice to keep going or back off. When she talked again, the words came slow, like pulling bad stuff from a hurt. His name was David, worked at a trading post near our winter camp. He was nice to us, patient, said he wanted to help join our worlds. A stop full of hurt. My cousin believed him. I believed him. We went to his cabin when he asked us. Thought we were being welcomed as friends. She didn't need to finish. Leland could see the rest of the story and how her shoulders were, the way her hands had curled into fists. Your cousin, he said quietly. The one who paid for your mess-up. She fought back. They strangled her for it. Nolan's voice had gone flat again, empty of everything but facts. I watched her die because I was too weak to save her, too trusting to see the trap until it snapped. Now Leland did reach out, his hand covering both of hers where they twisted in her lap. She got stiff but didn't pull away. That wasn't your fault, he said. You didn't kill her. They did. I led her there. You believed someone who lied. That's not the same as pulling the trigger. She looked down at his hand on hers, seemed almost shocked to find it there. When her eyes lifted to his face, they were full with tears she wouldn't let fall. How do you know? She whispered. How do you know the difference between believing and being a fool? You don't. Not until after. But giving up on trust all the way, that's just another kind of dying. Something broke in her face. She turned her hand over under his palm to palm, fingers slowly joining. The touch was sparkly, close in a way that had nothing to do with wanting, and everything to do with two people reaching over their own hurts to find each other. They sat like that, hands together, until the night got cold enough to make them go in. But even as they split, even as she went back to the room with her sisters, Leland felt the ghost of her touch hot against his skin. And he knew for sure that whatever happened next would change everything. Morning brought guests. The silver-haired old guy from the Apache camp came with two younger guys, their faces painted with the serious of their job. They sat outside Leland's house waiting with the endless weight of people who got that some talks couldn't be rushed. Nolan came out alone, leaving her sisters in. Leland watched from the doorway as she sat across from the old guy, her back straight and face careful blank. They talked in low voices, the talk flowing in words he couldn't get, but whose feeling heavy he felt anyway. The old guy pointed toward the camp, then toward Nayland, his hands moving in ways that seemed to mean as much as his words. She shook her head once hard, his face tightened with what might have been let down or mad or both. Then the old man's look shifted to Leland, standing in the doorway. He said something that made Nolan get stiff, her hands making fists. She answered sharp, color going to her cheeks. The old guy looked at her for a long second, then stood with the slow pride of someone who'd said his thing and would let it sit. Before going, he talked one more time, his voice going across the space to where Leland stood, even without getting the words. Leland felt the heavy of warning in them. A line had been made. Choose careful which side you stand on. After they left, Nolan stayed sitting in the dust, staring at nothing. Leland gave her room for a bit, then brought out 2 cups of coffee and sat beside her without asking. She took the cup quiet, warming her hands on it, even with the day getting hot. They want you back today, Leland said quietly. Not a question. They say I've had enough time to be sad. That duty doesn't stop for personal week. She took a sip, made a face at the bitter. They're right. Of course my people need leading. My sisters need safe. I need to stop being selfish. Wanting something for yourself isn't selfish, isn't it? She turned to look at him, and the real in her face made his chest hurt. 3 days ago, I didn't even know you were real. Now I'm thinking of ditching my jobs because thinking of leaving makes me feel like I can't breathe. The saying hung between them, risky and true. Leland felt his heart speed up, felt the careful space he'd been keeping start to fall. Nolan, don't. She held up a hand. Not quite touching him, but close enough that he could feel the heat of her palm. Don't make this harder than it already is. Don't give me reasons to stay when I already have too many pulling me to leave. But she didn't move away, didn't stand and go back. Instead, she stayed there so close, he could count single bits of dark hair coming out from her braid, could see the exact pattern of gold bits in her brown eyes. What did he say? Leland asked. The old guy. What did he warn me about? Her jaw got tight. That white men always take more than they're given. That I'm mixing thanks with something deeper. That he's seen this story before and it never ends good for our people. And what do you think? I think she stopped fighting with words. I think I've spent my whole life scared of the wrong stuff. I was scared of leading, scared of messing up my father's memory. So I ran and almost got my sisters killed. Now I'm scared of this. She pointed between them. The space that felt both too wide and too little of whatever's happening when you look at me like that. Like what? Like I matter. Not as a chief's daughter or a leader or a sign. Just as myself. Her voice went to barely above a whisper. Like you see me? Leland put down his cup careful, scared any quick move would break the second. I do see you. That's the problem. Why is it a problem? Because you're right. You do have jobs. People who need you. And I'm just some farmer who can't give you anything but a lonely house and more reasons to feel bad. She looked at his face for a long second, then did something that shocked them both. She reached out and touched his jaw, her fingers light as air against his skin. He went totally still, scared to breathe, scared to move and break whatever magic let her cross that last space. You gave us your home when we had no place, she said, soft. You stood by us when you could have let us face those men alone. You heard my hurt without trying to fix it or make it small. Her thumb followed the line of his cheekbone, and he felt that touch in every nerve. That's not nothing, Leland. He turned his head a bit, just enough that his lips almost brushed her palm. The air between them felt full, heavy with maybe and holding back the same. Her breath stopped, loud in the quiet. I should go inside, she whispered, but didn't move. Yes, he agreed. And didn't move either. They stayed like that, stuck in a second that felt both forever and easy to break. Her hand on, his face, his eyes locked on hers. The space between them measured in heartbeats and held breath, and everything neither dared to say out loud. Inside the house, Sani called out something in their words. The sound broke the magic. Nalan pulled. Her hand back fast like burned, and stood with jerky moves of someone fighting their own wants. Tonight, she said, not looking at him. They're sending someone at sunset to take us back to camp. Whether I say yes or not? She walked toward the house, shoulders straight with fake sure. But at the doorway, she stopped and looked back. The look she gave him was mixed, full with wanting and sad, and something wilder that stopped his breath. Then she was gone, and Leland was left sitting in the dust, his skin still hot where she'd touched him, wondering how you let go of something you'd only just started to hold. The sun went higher, not caring about people messes. By evening, a choice would have to be made, and somehow Leland knew that whatever happened next would either save them both or wreck the easy-to-break thing growing between them. He had until sunset to figure out which. The afternoon dragged like pulled string, each hour feeling longer than the last. Ka's leg had got better enough that she could walk with little limp, and Sani kept busy getting ready to go with a giving up that hurt to see. But it was Nalan who pulled Leland's focus. The way she moved through the house like a trapped animal, all jumpy energy and held-back fight. He found her at the stream as the sun started going down, sitting on the bank with her feet in the water. She'd untied her hair, letting it fall, loose around her shoulders in a way he'd never seen before. The sight stopped him cold. Something about that small, close feeling more showing than anything body. She heard him come, but didn't turn. You shouldn't be here. Probably not, he agreed, sitting beside her anyway. But I've never been good at staying away from things I shouldn't want. That made her look at him, a sad smile pulling at her lips. Is that what I am? Something you shouldn't want? That's what they'd say. Your people mine, if I had any left. And what do you say? Leland watched the water go past, clear enough to see stones under. I say I've spent 6 months talking myself into being better off alone. That needing people was just asking for hurt. Then 3 strangers showed up bleeding on my land. And the one with the knife and the bad trust problems made me remember what it feels like to be alive. She laughed, the sound breaking on something that might have been a cry. Bad trust problems. That's one way to say it. Nalin. He waited until she met his eyes. You don't owe me anything. If going back to your people is what you need to do, then do it. Don't stay because you feel bad or have to, or that's not why I want to stay. The words came fast, needy. I want to stay because when I'm here, I feel like I can breathe, because you look at me and don't see my father's ghost, or my people's wants. You just see me, Nalin, not the chief's daughter or the leader they're trying to force me to become. Just me. The weak spot in her voice broke something in his chest. He reached for her hand, and this time she didn't wait. Their fingers joined. Together, easy as if they'd been doing this for years instead of days. So stay, he said simple. Your sisters are getting better. They can make their own choices. But you stay. It's not that easy. It never is. Doesn't mean it's not worth doing. She turned to face him all the way, and the late afternoon sun caught in her eyes, turning them amber gold. You don't know what you're asking. If I stay, if I choose this, there will be bad stuff after. My people won't get it. They'll see it as selling out. Then let them. You've spent your whole life carrying their judging. Maybe it's time to put it down and pick up yours instead. I'm not asking you to carry anything. He raised their joined hands, pressed his lips against her knuckles in a move that was somehow closer than any kiss. I'm asking if you want to find out what happens when you choose something just because it makes you happy. No duty, no wants, just choice. Her eyes filled with tears that she blinked back hard. I'm scared of me, of this, of how much I want it, of what it means if I let myself have it. She pulled her hand free, but only to bring both palms up to hold his face. The touch was sparkly, her skin warm against his jaw. I've never touched a white man like this before. Never let myself want to. Leland's breath stopped. He could feel the little shake in her hands. The way her pulse jumped, you could see in her throat. And now I can't stop thinking about it. Her voice went to barely above a whisper, rough with feeling and something deeper about what it would feel like. Your hands on my skin, your mouth. She stopped herself, color coming to her cheeks. He stayed totally still, letting her run the second, the speed, the choice, even as every gut feeling yelled at him to close the space between them. He waited, because this had to be hers, had to be given, not taken. Her thumbs followed the line of his cheekbones, learning the map of his face with careful care. She leaned closer, close enough that he could feel her breath against his lips, could smell sage and smoke and something just her. Nalin. He got out, his voice broken. If you're going to leave at sunset, you should probably stop touching me like that. I know, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she closed the last space, pressing her forehead against his in a move that felt holy. We never touched a white man before. My sisters and I never let ourselves get close enough for it to matter. There it was. The words from the title said in a second full with everything they felt and couldn't say. Leland closed his eyes, focusing on the heavy of her forehead against his, the warm of her hands on his face, the way her breath mixed with his in the small space between them. And now he asked again, barely breathing. Now I get what I was keeping myself from. She pulled back just enough to look into his eyes, and what he saw there made his heart skip, because once I touch you like this, once I let myself feel what I'm feeling, leaving becomes impossible. Then don't leave, Leland. Whatever she was going to say was cut by the sound of horses. Lots of riders coming fast from the campway. They broke apart on gut. Nayland getting to her feet as the silver-haired old guy showed through the trees with at least 6 fighters. His face was serious as he took in the scene. Nalin, with her hair loose, standing close to Leland, both looking guilty as caught bad guys. The old guy spoke, his voice with letdown and mad the same. Nalan answered, her own voice going up to match his strong. A fight started, fast and wild, while Leland stood no help by, getting nothing but that everything was breaking. Finally, the old guy turned to Leland and spoke in broken English, each word picked careful. You keep her here with nice words and soft touches. But you know nothing of our ways, nothing of what she gives up for you. He pointed toward Nalan. She comes now. No more waiting. That's her choice, Leland said firm. Not yours, not mine, hers. The old guy's eyes sparked. She is Chief's daughter. Her choice hits all her people. Then maybe her people should trust her thinking. Before anyone could answer, Nalan stepped forward, putting herself between Leland and the old guy. When she spoke, her voice rang with a power Leland hadn't heard before. Boss power. The voice of someone born to lead, if she wanted or not. The old guy's face changed, shock mixing with something that might have been proud. He answered more soft this time, almost begging. The fighters behind him moved uneasy, clearly, not used to seeing their old guy talk deal instead of boss. Then Nalan turned to Leland, and the wreck in her eyes told him everything he needed before she spoke. I have to go. The words hit like rocks in still water, sending hurt waves through Leland's chest. He watched as Nalan turned away, making her shoulders straight in that way she did when making herself strong. The old guy nodded happy, pointing for her to get on one of the extra horses. But before Nalan could move, Ka stepped out of the house, Sani close behind. The middle sister walked straight to the old guy, her hurt leg barely showing weak now, and spoke in their words with quiet strong. Whatever she said made the old man's eyebrows go up in shock. Sani joined her, adding her own voice to whatever fight Ka was making. The two sisters stood side by side, together in plan, while Nalan watched with growing mix-up and something that looked like hope breaking through her giving up. The old guy listened, his old face going through feelings, shock, thinking, doubt, and finally not wanting yes. He turned to Nalan and spoke, his tone softer now, almost asking. Nalan answered sharp, shaking her head. Ka cut her off, putting a hand on her older sister's arm. The talk that followed was fast, full feeling, with points and what Leland could only see as love mixed with being annoyed. Finally, Ka switched to English, clearly for Leland's help as much as her own. My sister thinks she has to save everyone, has to give up everything for duty. She looked right at Leland. But maybe what our people need isn't another leader carrying the heavy of old ways. Maybe they need to learn to stand without always leaning on one family. Sani nodded, adding her voice. Nalan taught us to be strong, to choose our own paths. Now she won't choose hers, because she's scared of letting down people who haven't earned the right to her care. The old guy spoke, and though Leland didn't get the words, he heard the question in them. Nalan's eyes filled with tears as she answered, her voice breaking in the middle. Ka translated her own eyes wet. She says she can't ditch her jobs, can't let her father down, can't leave her people without leading. A stop then wilder. But I told the old guy that I will go back. I will train. I will lead if they need someone so bad. Ka. No. Nalan started. Why not? Her sister's voice had steel under the soft. You think you're the only one who can carry father's stuff left? I'm his daughter, too. So is Sani. We didn't ask for this heavy, but neither did you. She moved closer, taking both of Nalan's hands. You've spent your whole life keeping us safe, teaching us, getting us ready to be strong. Now let us be strong enough to give you this. Give me what? Choice? Free love, if that's what this is? Ka looked at Leland, a small smile breaking through. And I think it is. Sani stepped forward, joining the circle of sisters. We're going back. The old guy will teach me the ways of our people. Proper and fancy. Ka will learn to lead. And you? She touched Nalan's face soft. You will stop running from the one thing you really want because you're scared of being happy. Tears went down Nolin's cheeks. I don't deserve this. None of us deserve the good things we get, Ka said soft. We just have to be brave enough to take them. The old guy watched this talk with a face that had softened a lot. When he spoke again, his voice had the heavy of giving in instead of boss. Nolin looked at him in not believing, questions coming from her lips. He answered each one patient and slow, impossible. Hope started to take over the giving up in how she stood. She turned to Leland, and the look in her eyes made it hard to breathe. They're saying I can stay. That if Ka really wants to lead, they'll start her training. That I've earned the right to choose my own path. And what do you choose? His voice came out rougher than meant. Before she could answer, the sound of coming horses cut through the second, but these weren't Apache riders. Leland knew the build and speed right away. The traders had come back, and this time they'd brought extra guys. At least 8 men, all with guns, riding hard toward the group. The lead trader stopped short when he saw the Apache fighters, his sureness shaking. But wanting bad or dumb or both pushed him on. We got legal claim on those 3, he yelled, pointing at the sisters. They stole from us when they ran. We're taking them back to face justice. Legal claim? Leland stepped forward, mad burning cold in his chest. You mean the justice of men who think pay for work gives them rights to bodies? The trader's face got red. You calling me a liar, Moss? I'm calling you a lot worse than that. The Apache fighters had spread out, hands on weapons, making a wall between the traders and the sisters. The old guy spoke in English, his words slow and on purpose. These women under our keep safe now. You leave, or you learn why smart men don't threaten Apache daughters. The trader's hand went toward his gun. In answer, every Apache fighter pulled their weapons at the same time. The move smooth and practiced and super scary in how good. For a long second, hurt hung in the air like a held breath. Then the trader seemed to get he'd pushed as far as he could without dying. He spat in the dirt, glaring hate at all of them. This ain't over. Yes, Nayland said clear, stepping forward to stand by Leland. It is. You have no claim here. No power, no right, and if you come back, you won't leave breathing. There was something in her voice that made even Leland's back straighten. Boss power. The voice of someone who'd been born to lead if she wanted or not. Now used with knowing choice instead of not wanting duty. The trader knew it too. His face went white, and without another word, he turned his horse around. His men followed, going back at a run that said, "Fear not, smart, pull back." As the dust settled, Nolin stayed standing tall, her hand finding Leland's. She looked at the old guy, at her sisters, then finally at Leland. When she spoke, her voice had the heavy of choice made and peace found. I choose to stay. The next morning came wrapped in the kind of quiet that comes after storms. When the world feels cleaned and new, Ka and Sani got ready to go with the old guy and his fighters. Their few things gathered in bundles that seemed too small to hold the trip they'd lived through together. Nolin helped them pack, her moves careful and slow, as if she could somehow make time slow by looking at each small bit. When everything was ready, the 3 sisters stood together one last time, hands joined in a circle that had kept them safe through everything. Ka spoke first, her voice steady even with the tears going down her face. You raised us when Father couldn't, kept us safe when the world got mean. Now let us keep you safe by giving you okay to be happy. Sani squeezed Nolin's hand. Come visit when you're ready. Bring him if you want. She looked at Leland with a shy smile. I think Father would have liked him. Anyone stubborn enough to stand against traitors and old guys deserves respect. Nolin pulled them both into a wild hug, her own tears coming free now. You promise me you'll be careful, both of you. No more risks. No more running off without thinking. We learned from the best, Ka said with gentle funny. Though maybe we'll make better choices about which rules to break. The old guy came close, giving Nolin a last chance to change her mind. She said no with nice and sure, thanking him in their words for his getting it. He nodded once, taking her choice, even if he didn't fully get it. As the riders got ready to go, Sani hugged Leland fast, whispering something in his ear that made him nod serious. Ka gripped his arm with surprise strong. She seems wild, but she breaks easier than she shows. Be soft with those brakes. I will, he promised. Then they were getting on, the horses jumping with want to go. Nalin stood by Leland, watching her sisters ride away toward a future she wouldn't share. Her hand found his, fingers joining with easy natural. They stayed there long after the riders went beyond the hill, neither quite ready to break the magic of goodbye. Finally, Nalin turned to face him, and Leland saw in her face something that looked like free mixed with scared. So, she said, trying light that didn't quite work, I suppose we should figure out what happens next. I suppose we should, she laughed, the sound breaking on feeling. I've never done this before. Chosen something just for myself. I don't know the rules. Neither do I. Leland raised their joined hands, pressing a kiss to her knuckles like he had before, but this time without the shadow of goodbye hanging over them. Maybe we make our own. That sounds risky. Probably is. She stepped closer, getting rid of the space between them until her body nearly touched his. I'm still scared, she said, her free hand coming up to rest over his heart. Scared I'll wake up tomorrow and be sorry this. Scared I'm being selfish. Scared that choosing happy means I'm weak. You're the strongest person I've ever met, Leland said, true. Strong enough to keep your sisters safe against guys who wanted to hurt them. Strong enough to walk away from a path everyone wanted you to take. Strong enough to say you're scared. Her eyes searched his face, remembering bits like she was scared he might go away. What if I'm not good at this? At being just with one person, building something quiet instead of leading people? Then we'll figure it out together. He brought his other hand up to hold her face, thumb following the line of her cheekbone. No wants, no show, just you and me, learning as we go. She leaned into his touch, her eyes shutting for a second. When they opened again, they held a heat that stopped his breath. I want to kiss you, she said, simple. I've wanted to since that first day when you stepped back and gave us room instead of taking it. Then kiss me. She did. The kiss started soft, almost testing, as if she was still learning the shape of this new free. But then her arms wrapped around his neck and she pressed closer, and suddenly there was nothing testing about it. It was wild and needy and full of everything they'd held back for days. Every fear and hope and impossible maybe pouring into the join of lips and breath and bodies finally together. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Leland rested his forehead against hers in the move that had become theirs. Stay with me, he whispered. Not because you have to. Not because you owe me anything, but because you want to. I want to, she said, and the sure in her voice got rid of any left doubt. I want to wake up next to you. Want to learn what makes you laugh? Want to build something that's ours and nobody else's? She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. I want to choose you every single day and have you choose me back. Already done, he said, and kissed her again. The sun went higher, warming the land around Leland's small house that had gone from empty to lived in the space of a few short days. Inside, they started the careful work of building a life together. One talk and shared food and quiet second at a time. Sometimes Nayland would look toward the skyline where her sisters had gone and feel the pull of old jobs. But then Leland would touch her hand, or smile at something she said, or just be beside her in comfy quiet. And she'd remember that duty wasn't the only thing worth living for. 3 months later, Ka and Sani visited with news of the changes happening in their people. The old ways were moving, making room for new voices and different paths. They stayed for a week, filling the house with laughs and tales and the mixed joy of sisters who'd learned to honor both old ways and choice. As they got ready to leave again, Ka pulled Nalin aside. You look happy, she saw. Different, like you finally stopped running. I have, Nalin said, looking at where Leland was teaching Sani how to fix a saddle. Found something worth staying still for. Good. Ka hugged her tight. Father would be proud. Not because you chose duty, but because you chose yourself. After her sisters left, Nalin stood with Leland, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and rose. His arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her close, and she leaned into a solid warm with the ease of someone who'd finally found home. No regrets? He asked quietly. She turned in his arms, going up on her toes to kiss him soft. Not a single one. And in the dying light, around by land that had become theirs through choice not given, Nowlin got that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was let yourself be happy. That choosing love over duty didn't make you weak. It made you human. She'd touched her first white man and found not the bad guy her fears had made, but a buddy, an equal, someone who saw her all and loved her anyway. And that she thought as Leland kissed her again with all the promise of tomorrow and every day after was worth every risk she'd taken to get here. If you enjoyed this story, click the video on your screen now to watch another unforgettable tale where courage and destiny collide in ways you never expected. Don't forget to subscribe and consider a super chat to help us keep bringing you more stories like these.